The abduction and murder of my Romanov family royals in 1916. During World War I in 1916, the decision was made to have the Romanov royal family, the constitutional monarchy of Russia, do a multi-day secure publicity photo session. The intention was to hire a professional photography crew for a period of days and use multiple non-authentic costumes and props. Then have the royal family dress and pose for photographs covering every important national day in Russia and any more that were considered important and relevant in other parts of the Soviet Union at the time. Always with the genetic cultural background of the Romanov royal family members in mind when choosing the day or season that was to be the theme of the photographs. The plan was to cover Christmas, New Year, national days, religious-themed days, Independence Days, Soviet Union national days, royal family-specific days, etc. Around a whole year worth of photographs. With all costumes and non-authentic props required. The plan was for the royals to travel back home again after the sessions were finished, back to the same place the royals traveled from. The Romanov royal family hired a professional photography crew from the country Turkiye for the sessions. It was claimed that the two nations had a lot in common in some ways, something to do with straddling both Europe and Asia. A venue was chosen for the entire Romanov royal family of 8 to stay at and complete all the required photographs within 7 days, approximately. The royal family security team transported the 8 royals and crew to the chosen venue under armed guard, with all required non-authentic costumes and props for the sessions. The sessions themselves went well, with the royal family members having to regularly change costumes and props for the photographs. Sometime during the sessions, the security team was compromised, with some if not all murdered or missing. When the photography sessions were over, the entire Romanov royal family was abducted by the film crew who completed the photography shoot. They also stole all the clothing and props. The crew from Turkey abducted the Romanov royals from the venue the sessions were in when the multi-day shoot was completed. A fake letter was received by the royal security team back at the home base by someone who was in on the abduction attempt. It was an attempt to claim that the Romanov royal family decided not to travel back to home base with the security team after the sessions were over. That they had decided to take an unplanned break instead, like a short holiday, and would be traveling elsewhere instead of heading home. It ended with the equivalent of, "See you when we get back." A forgery. After abduction, the Romanov royals were handed over to terrorism groups associated with evil lunatic Albert Einstein. They were victimized, disabled, tortured for information, and murdered by the end of 1916. The offenses against the royals were documented by the perpetrators with images taken of the victims during their ordeal. Possibly film footage. The deceased Tsarina Alexandra Fyodorova, the Romanovs' only remaining descendant after the murders, was my legitimate grandfather Ioseb Chugashvili, nicknamed Stalin. Tsarina Alexandra's firstborn child, of the 7 she had in total. The other 6 children were Princess Anastasia, Prince Ivanovich, Prince Alexei, Princess Olga, Princess Tatiana, and Princess Maria. Ioseb was their maternal half-brother and in boarding school in Georgia when the abductions and murders occurred. I am Ioseb's only legitimate grandchild, with no legitimate descendants. Alexandra's first long-term boyfriend was a native Australian man called Bessaronis Chugashvili from a place called Traralgon in what is now Gippsland. Bessaronis was her boyfriend from the age of 16 up until she agreed to marry Nicholas Hohenzollern II, approximately. Nicholas Hohenzollern II was a relative of my Hohenzollern royal family but did not have a Hohenzollern royal title when he married Alexandra. Tsarina Alexandra Fyodorova the Romanov met her future husband Nicholas II when he was in a sexual relationship with her nephew Grigory Rasputin, who was my grandfather Ioseb's cousin. Grigory Rasputin was also murdered, via poisoning, in 1916. He died during a winter walk home, after poison was added to food he ate at a private event he attended. He didn't make it back to his place of residence from the event, and was found dead halfway across a frozen stream, under the bridge that still spans it. Grigory didn't make it across the stream because of the effects of the poison he consumed. After he was found dead, the people who found him shot his deceased body through the forehead, and made up a fictional story about hunting him down. With supplied fake reasoning for it, and souvenir photographs of his body. The perpetrators of the murder of the Romanov royal family members from 1916 then buried the royals' remains in 2 separate sites. The remains of Prince Ivanovich and Princess Anastasia buried separately to the rest. Nicholas Hohenzollern II's penis was severed after his death by the perpetrators, with the motive being that it was bigger than Albert Einstein's. It was placed in a large jar of formaldehyde preservative and kept in storage as a macabre souvenir by the perpetrators. Afterwards, it was mislabeled Grigory Rasputin's penis and kept in storage, disgustingly enough. Treated as almost a tourist attraction in some people's opinions. There have been many photographs taken of the jar and its contents. People can access images of the body part in a jar on the internet. Apparently, they are not all that difficult to find, revoltingly enough. I personally take serious offense at the idea it is still in storage. My preferred course of action, if that is the case, would be to bury it with the rest of Nicholas Hohenzollern II's remains or incinerate it, before disposing of it at the least. Having a penis that is, or was, bigger than evil lunatic mass genocidal sex offender and torturer Albert Einstein's is no crime under any circumstances. The concept of keeping the body part in storage and available for viewing is repugnant. After the abduction and murder of the Romanov royals in 1916, imposters hand-selected by Albert Einstein started pretending to be the Romanov royal family. But only in private at first, via correspondence. They wore the costumes the royals used for the photo sessions whilst doing it in private. It was a process of corresponding via letters, getting replies and replying back to try to build up a bank of correspondence with people. 7 of the imposters were part Greek, part North American Rewalds, who were also part Australian. 1 adult female and the 6 imposter children. The imposter Nicholas II was a half Dutch Netherlands, half Indian Asian man. They used correspondence where they pretended to the Romanov royal family to attempt to lure scientists, philosophers, teachers, religious leaders, and others to places for abduction during 1917. So the intended victims could be abducted, disabled, tortured for information, and murdered by Einstein's terrorism group. So evil creep Einstein could use the information to falsely portray himself as a physicist, scientist, and philosopher. In 1917 they decided to attempt to go out in public pretending to be the Romanov royal family at what was intended to be a small public event. They advertised themselves as the Romanov royals attending the event beforehand. The father of my great-grandmother Tsarina Alexandra Fyodorova the Romanov's firstborn child, my great-grandfather Bessarionis Jugashvili, decided to attend to the event after seeing advertising for it. It was to quietly check out how his former partner, her husband, and 6 eligible children were doing from the public area. He had not seen them for quite some time. It was extremely obvious to Bessarionis that the 8 imposters were not the real Romanov royals very quickly. 2 of the children were wearing molded masquerade ball-like face masks glued to their faces. The masks appeared to have been manufactured using 2 real Romanov royal children's faces as the template for the molds. Bessarionis checked with the royal security team afterwards. He had known the royals personally for some time. A shrieking, panicking person told him there was a letter explaining why the Romanovs hadn't returned since their photo sessions. The security team showed him the fake letter, claiming a decision was made for them to take a break after the photographic shoot. Bessarionis berated the security supervisor afterwards, attempting to get a reason why the details of the letter weren't checked properly. Demanding to know why a security check on their well-being and location had not been done. He checked everything out himself and decided to take action. The royal family were at first declared missing. Bessarionis eventually confirmed the royals were dead. He was outraged and attempted to lure the imposters he saw at the public event to a building. It had an underground wine cellar with an external door. He organized a meeting. He recruited some associates and they all had to dress like British Indian soldiers with service rifles to get to the venue he had requested the meeting at with some false information. The imposters attended at the date and time requested and sat inside the wine cellar's external door, armed with loaded miniature Russian finger pistols, wearing some of the costumes the real Romanov family had used in the photo shoot the royals were abducted from. Bessarionis and his friends ambushed them in the cellar and a difficult confined space gunfight followed. Bessarionis and his associates shot all the imposters dead. All 8. Bessarionis and his friends were all seriously wounded afterwards in the general region of the hips, groin, and genitals. Bessarionis and his associates were arrested for the executions. Charged with murdering the 8 imposters. Trialed in 1918. Found guilty and sentences to life without parole sentences for the 8 executions. The court records of the trial of Bessarionis and his associates clearly stated the real surnames of the people he and his friends executed for pretending to be the Romanov royal family. 7 of the 8 deceased had the surname Anastasopoulos. The adult male was a part Dutch Netherlands, part Indian Asian man. Bessarionis Jugashvili lived the rest of his life in jail and died in jail in the 1930s. When he died, his son Tsarina Alexandra Fyodorova the Romanov was the General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and Premier, political head of state, of the bloc nation. My grandfather Ioseb Stalin Jugashvili. Some people now pretend Bessarionis and his associates executed the real Romanov royal family. Not the case. The real Romanovs died in 1916. The imposters' executions were in 1917. The deceased Romanov royal family monarch Alexandra's surname was Fyodorova. Her deceased husband Nicholas II's surname was Hohenzollern. The Einstein-selected imposters did not temporarily become the Russian monarchy at any time after the murder of the Romanov royal family in 1916, before they were executed in 1917. People who pretend they did are insane. People sometimes reference lies told about French royals mass murdered by lunatics from French Guiana in the 1790s when talking about the impostor Romanovs. Those morons pretend the French Guiana murderers of the French royals temporarily became the French royal family after the murders, until the only person eligible to become the new emperor, Napoleon, stole the royal family back with a similar act. Some people bitch and moan, pretending the imposters became the Russian royal family until executed in 1917. Rubbish. Those people can even go as far as claiming the imposters' descendants would still be pretending to be the Romanov royal family now if they were not executed in 1917. Complete insanity. They will even offensively pretend sadly moan that the imposters never even got to hold a fancy dress party and use the furniture and buildings like French Guiana lunatics did in France in the 1790s. The imposter Romanovs only got to wear non-authentic photo shoot clothing and worthless fake props instead of real clothes and jewelry, like the French Guiana lunatics in France in the 1790s. Complete lunacy. Descendants of the imposters are irrelevant to me being the sole remaining legitimate Romanov. It has nothing to do with them. The murders and the short-lived imposters were definitely not a revolution against Russia and its constitutional monarchy. That is going way too far with the fictionalized details of the incidents involved. Legendary imposter revolutionaries. No. violent, pathetic, and insane. Yes. Lunatics still have all the clothing and props from the abduction of Romanov Family Royals in 1916. Possibly including the clothing all 8 were buried in. Along with all the photographs and film if applicable of them being violated after abduction until their murders.